Hi everyone, I'm Margarita Muradova, a personal stylist and fashion consultant from Kiev, Ukraine. And first of all, Happy New Year. I feel like this is the first video that's going to go up since the beginning of this 2023. So Happy New Year, hope you enjoyed your holidays, etc., and let's get back to the business, obviously. So in today's video, and this is the first video on this channel in 2023, I thought this would be an amazing topic to talk about some do's and don'ts for winter shoes, because there's going to be still a lot of winter happening, at least for Ukraine, for example, because we have not only do we have January and February, also March is pretty bothersome in terms of cold, so we still wear a lot of warmer clothing, warmer shoes for these months. And anyways, this is a kind of advice that I think would be very applicable not only for this year but for each and every year that's going to keep going forward, because I feel like these tips and tricks that I've been using for me and my clients have been working really well, and they're absolutely timeless. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So let's first of all start with the fact that I'm holding my phone over here. The reason for that is I always have my lists for these kinds of videos. I write something down beforehand, so I always have my lists with me here. And we'll start with the do's for the shoes. So for the first do, something that I would definitely recommend is going for winter shoes. I'd definitely go half a size or even a size up from your usual size, especially if your shoes are a pointed toe kind of a shoe, or not even a pointed toe kind of a shoe, but any kind of a shoe. I'd go half a size up, especially if you're the one who's wearing warmer socks, warmer tights, etc., because when the shoe is tight, it's particularly bothersome for your feet, and your feet don't get a lot of circulation physically. That's why they get really cold. So your feet basically need some space to be warm and to warm themselves up, and also your feet need some space for your socks to fit in. So for winter shoes, I usually go half a size or a size up. I usually give this advice to my clients and they do the same. And if you're going for a pointed toe kind of a shoe for winter, I'd go a size up for sure, because a pointed toe basically limits your feet's capability of going forward in a shoe because it's so narrow. So the reason for that is you just need some more space in a pointed toe kind of a shoe. The next thing I'd mention is, so sometimes, especially for colder months and especially for countries that have colder climates, so for example, Ukraine in our case, in my case specifically, here in Kiev, we have a cold winter. It's pretty cold. And some people like to have a lined shoe. So for example, a shearling lined or fur lined, etc. So something that's going to warm their feet up. Me personally, I usually get away. I actually don't have even, except for Uggs, I think, or clogs, like very weird, funky clogs. I don't have lined shoes for winter at all, because I usually wear shoes that are not lined, but just a bit like size or half a size larger. And I follow other advices of mine that I'll keep telling to you in this video. And I do not necessarily need a warmer shoe for that matter, because I'm not walking outside for like hours and hours on end. If that's your case, definitely go for a lined shoe for sure. If you're not that person, you can always get away with having a just more quality pair of boots, etc., and follow the advices that I'll give you in a second, and this will be absolutely it and enough for you to feel warm and stylish during the winter. So the next thing is, the height of your shoe is supposed to be above the ankle in order, first of all, you'll be much warmer that way, and second of all, you'll avoid that awkward skin sandwich that usually appears in between the end of your shoe and the beginning of your jeans and trousers, etc., and also dresses and skirts. And this skin sandwich looks kind of weird when it's not like embellished with something. So for example, if you have like a sock or something that's scrunched up in between your shoe, the end of your shoe, and basically the beginning of your skirt and your pant, etc., this is going to look okay. Otherwise, it's going to look awkward. So I'd suggest to just drop this at all and have a higher shoe for winter, because it's going to keep you warmer, it's going to look more effortless and stylish. obviously, first of all, always try to go for a waterproof material, and second of all, have a spray, a waterproofing spray on hand in your house, your work, wherever you go, and spray your shoes, particularly leather ones and suede ones, half an hour or another hour before going out in order for that spray to set in. And this is going to help, first of all, maintain the beauty and the perfection of your shoes and the material, and second of all, it's going to protect your shoes from water spilling in and your feet getting wet, etc., etc. So the next tip I have is, if you want to have a heel for winter, which usually is not the best case scenario for Ukraine, for example, because we have a lot of snow. It's absolutely crazy to walk around in heels in snowy weather. But if you're a person who doesn't have a lot of snow in their continent, in their place that they're living, or you just prefer heels, always try to go for a block heel as opposed to a thinner stiletto kind of a heel or even a kitten heel. The reasoning behind that, it could get stuck so much easier because the sphere of the heel is so much smaller, as opposed to a block heel that actually has a bigger platform, basically, so it doesn't get stuck in snow and you feel more secure in those kinds of shoes. That's just a security issue for me specifically. The next thing is, that's more a styling kind of advice. I'd go for a pointed toe to elongate a voluminous wintry look, because first of all, obviously for winter we have a lot of layers. We have like puffer coats and fur coats, vintage fur coats, etc., etc., and all of these things are so voluminous, so we end up with having a lot of like overly not very structured shapes in our winter looks because we want to be warm. And if you balance it out with a more pointed toe of your boot, of your booties, of your platform shoes, whatever, just with a pointed toe, you will have a more balanced out and harmonic look, because you'll have something structured and something pointy, so something very geometric and something like very like flowy and ovally, etc., etc. So this is what I call a balance of shapes. This is the perfect example of still being warm but having those balance of shapes, and therefore having a more stylish and beautiful and finished look on you for winter and still being warm. The next thing is also styling wise. The thing I go for, and I usually suggest going for, especially if you're the one who loves wearing skirts and dresses for winter, is going for over-the-knee boots. I cannot stress enough how good they are in, first of all, keeping you warm because they have this layer of leather on your legs. Second of all, they give this continuation of your leg into your skirt and your dress, etc., etc., and therefore there's no breakage of that, and therefore your look is going to look more elongated and your silhouette is going to look more finished and polished and beautiful. The third reason for that is because you will have those two layers that would look more complete and beautiful, and you would definitely be able to avoid that skin sandwich that happens in between your booty and your skirt and your dress. So this is a beautiful advice all around, and it's also really, really warm, and it looks really elegant, especially if your over-the-knee boot is a no heel, for example, but with a more pointed toe, and those kinds of shoes do definitely exist. Just I'll show you some examples, but you will definitely be able to find like a pointed toe over-the-knee boot. Definitely go for not a suede but a leather one, obviously for waterproof reasons, and also just because it looks more finished and put together that way. And the last do for winter shoes is a thick sole. This is basically a deal breaker for me, because this is the best advice I could give to someone who doesn't like a lined shoe for winter but who wants to keep warm. This is the best advice. Get a thicker soled shoe, whether that's boots, booties, sneakers, whatever it is. So for example, I could compare a brogue with a thicker sole with no lining to a bootie with a very thin sole with fur lining, and the first one is going to be, so the brogue with a thicker sole is going to be so much warmer because the distance from the ground, which is really cold during the winter, and your feet is so much bigger, so the coldness, the cold that is in the ground is not going to seep in into your feet. And this is the best advice that anyone who knows me follows this, and they definitely have told me they tried this advice over and over again. Those are my clients, my friends, me personally. This is the best tip to be warm and to have the best shoes for winter: a thicker sole. So the thicker, the better. Combat boots, brogues, sneakers, booties, platforms, whatever you pick, just make sure you have a thicker sole. So let's go into the don'ts. And the first don't is obviously a very thin sole and also very thin material. So thin materials and thin soles are a no-no for winter because they're going to make your feet much colder, because the cold is going to seep into your feet because of the thickness of the material in the sole. So just make sure that the sole is thicker and the material is kind of like tight and thick. So a thicker leather, thicker suede, neoprene, whatever it is, just make sure, rubber for example, whatever it is, just make sure it's thick enough and it's going to keep you warm. The next thing is slippery leather sole. The worst thing ever. This could be the best boots, the best brogues, the best shoes, whatever they are in your life, but if you have a slippery leather sole, you're absolutely for winter, because you're going to be slipping everywhere. You're gonna feel like you're on a skating rink because your shoes are not going to have any grip on the ground. So just make sure that your shoes are not a leather sole one. Keep those leather soles, slippery leather soles, for summer, in your loafers, for Italian summer, etc., etc. But for winter, everything that's textured is the way to go in terms of gripping to the ground and staying safe and being safe. The next thing is, styling wise, try to spice it up and don't make all your winter shoes black, even though I know this is a temptation for a lot of people. First of all, it's just kind of boring. Second of all, winter styling is much harder, and most people actually end up having a much simpler, much more basic wardrobe, even without the black shoes. And with the black shoes, it ends up being like a total black, gray, dolly mess for me. And I feel like most people have a bit of more depression during those colder months. So one thing more that you definitely don't need is a very dull clothing that would make you even more depressed and more sad and uninspired, because clothing has that effect on people. And for me personally, when I wear something that inspires me, when I wear something that makes me happy, when I wear bolder colors and interesting shapes, etc., etc., it actually lifts my mood, obviously because I work in styling, but also this has the same effect on different people, not even people who work in styling. So this is a tried and true subject, believe me, and I think that you felt this kind of way anyways in your life. When you wore something that you really like, it lifted your mood. So think of it this way. Obviously, have some black shoes for winter, but also try to spice it up with some milky white, off-white shoes with some bolder colors. Even if your whole look is going to be very basic, like black and gray, etc., a green shoe is going to look so cool. It's going to inspire you. It's going to complete your look. You're going to look much more stylish, much more put together, etc., etc. So this is a win-win situation for sure. Just have a couple of pairs of shoes that are more like risque and interesting. The next thing is something that I would definitely not do is having a tight shoe. And I know there's so many of you that have their favorite shoe that is kind of a bit tight, and if you're like, okay, I can walk in them for like a couple of miles. Actually, first of all, it cuts your circulation, and second of all, it makes your feet so much colder because the circulation is not that like perfect, and therefore your feet don't have enough space to warm themselves up. And we're not even talking about having a warmer sock to fit in there, because it's not going to fit. So always make sure that your winter shoes have enough space for a thicker sock and also for them to breathe. Do feet actually breathe? Anyways, just have some space in your winter shoes. And last advice, something that I would definitely think and be like aware of for winter, styling wise, try not to match your winter shoes with your bag. This is an advice I would give to each and every person actually. Just try not to match your shoes and your bag, especially if you have a more basic kind of a look, a more classic, more neutral kind of a look. But specifically for winter, where, as I've mentioned, people tend to get more basic in their looks and tend to get the looks get a little bit depressing, gray and black, etc., etc. This is a very important point to make, not to match your shoes and your bag in terms of color, because this is going to make your look even more simple and even more basic. So something that you can always do is try to make your shoes, for example, like red, whatever, your bag is black. Your shoes are black, your bag is brown. Your shoes are navy, your bag is brown or chocolate or black or milky white or off-white, etc., or patterned, if you're feeling risque that day. But anyways, just make sure that those things don't match, first of all, because the look is going to look more completed and interesting and three-dimensional in that way. And second of all, because this is going to basically elongate your silhouette, because if you have something up top that is the same color as something on the bottom, this is going to kind of, those two colors basically visually kind of stick together. They kind of always navigate towards each other. Therefore, your kind of figure or your silhouette is going to end up looking more kind of stompy, and that's not the case for a total monochromatic look. But if this is not a total monochromatic look, this is the way it's going to go. So always try to make sure your bag and your shoes do not match, and especially for winter, because this is going to elongate your silhouette so much more and make you look so much more interesting, effortless, and your style is going to look so much more fulfilled that way. That's my point of view anyways. Make sure you let me know in the comments below, what do you think of winter fashion, first of all, and second of all, what are some things that you're opposed to for winter shoes and winter fashion, and something that's your tried and true hack for winter shoes, for example. Share that with us in the comments below. And this is it for this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!